Alex blinked slowly as bright blue lights flickered above him. His head was spinning, his mouth dry, and he couldn't feel his legs. He tried to move, but soft restraints held his arms down gently. A low humming sound vibrated through the room. Steady and mechanical, he wasn't on Earth anymore, that much he understood. As he turned his head, he noticed walls made of smooth metal, glowing with faint alien runes. Strange machines blinked and pulsed around him, and a sweet but unfamiliar smell filled the air. His memory was foggy. He remembered an explosion, pain, and then darkness. Now he was awake again, inside what looked like a medical pod, floating slightly above the ground. Suddenly, he felt something. A soft touch on his chest, cold and gentle, almost electric. He looked down as much as he could. And that's when he saw her. She wasn't human. Not even close, tall and slim, with glowing teal skin and long white hair that floated as if underwater. She had big silver eyes that blinked slowly, and her fingers glowed slightly at the tips. Alien Nurse was touching his chest with a small device in her hand. But then her hand froze. She gasped softly, her gaze shifting downward toward his lower body. Alex couldn't see what she was looking at, but her face changed instantly. Her calm expression turned to shock, almost fear. She dropped her scanner and took a step back, her silver eyes wide. She touched a glowing badge on her neck and spoke in rapid alien language. Her voice trembled, her body stiff as she looked back at him. Alex tried to speak, but all he could manage was a soft groan. What happened? He whispered weakly. The nurse didn't respond. Instead, she turned quickly and moved to the wall, pressing buttons and calling for someone. Alex heard beeping, then saw another alien appear, a taller figure with sharp markings across his forehead and a long robe. He seemed older, perhaps a doctor. The nurse spoke rapidly to the doctor, still pointing toward Alex's lower body. The doctor approached and waved a glowing wand over Alex's legs. He raised an eyebrow, then sighed with understanding. He turned to the nurse and said something calm, firm, and slow. She looked embarrassed, her head lowered, her cheeks turning from blue to a soft pinkish hue. Alex stared between them, completely confused. The doctor looked at him and said in broken English, "Normal. For human males, yes." Then he chuckled quietly, almost amused, and left the room. The nurse remained, awkward and silent. She bent down to pick up her dropped scanner, but her hands shook slightly. Alex tried to sit up, but his strength wasn't fully back yet. "Hey," he said softly, "did I scare you?" The nurse turned to him slowly, her voice gentle and uncertain. "No," she replied. "I was surprised." Her accent was thick but clear. "You are warmer than expected," she added, looking away quickly. Alex raised an eyebrow, confused. "Warmer?" he repeated, trying to understand. She nodded, brushing her hair behind one ear. "Heat building here," she said, pointing toward his lower stomach, not meeting his eyes. Realization hit him all at once. He felt heat rising to his cheeks. Oh no, he thought. He hadn't even noticed. He was still weak, still groggy, but clearly. His body had reacted on its own. Human biology, after all, had its own systems. It's nothing," he said quickly, embarrassed. "It just happens when a guy wakes up sometimes." The nurse looked at him again, studying his face. She seemed confused but curious. "Is it dangerous?" she asked slowly. Alex laughed softly, then winced at the pain in his ribs. "No, just awkward," he replied. "But not dangerous." She looked thoughtful, processing the information. Then she said something unexpected. "You are different from us," she whispered. "Your body reacts to feelings?" Alex nodded carefully. "Yeah, sometimes it does," he said. "Especially when we're touched or see someone beautiful." The nurse's eyes widened slightly. She looked at him for a moment longer, then turned and left without a word. Alex lay back in the bed, completely overwhelmed. What had just happened? Was she scared of him or just confused? Why did she come so close again? His heart was racing now, not from fear or pain, but from something else, something new. He stared at the ceiling. The soft blue lights pulsing above. Somehow, this recovery was about to get a lot more complicated. The next morning, Alex woke to the soft hum of machines and a faint glow coming from the overhead lights. He blinked slowly and turned his head, expecting to see the same nurse, but the bed next to him was empty. Only silence and the gentle beeping of monitors filled the room. He tried sitting up, and this time, his muscles cooperated a little better. The restraints had been removed, and a folded blanket rested on his lap. His uniform had been replaced with a smooth alien robe, thin and slightly cold. He looked around, unsure whether to feel grateful or awkward. The door slid open with a quiet hiss. It was her, Liari, the alien nurse from before. She walked in slowly, holding a medical tablet in her glowing hands. Her posture was stiff, her gaze locked on the screen. She didn't look at him even once. "Good morning," Alex said, offering a small smile. Liari paused, then nodded slightly. "Yes," she answered without lifting her head. "You are stable." She approached and began scanning his chest, checking his temperature, pulse, and other readings. Her fingers moved fast but carefully, still. She never made eye contact, not even for a second. Alex tilted his head, studying her face. Something was different. She wasn't the calm and curious nurse from yesterday. Now she seemed distant, nervous even. "You okay?" Alex asked softly. The scanner in her hand beeped, and she pulled it back quickly, almost dropping it. "I am fine," she said, too quickly. "No damage detected." Alex narrowed his eyes. "Look, about yesterday," he began, but she interrupted. "There is no need to explain," she said, still not looking at him. "Your reaction was within biological norms." Now Alex was definitely sure she was embarrassed, but was it just because of the incident, or something deeper? He took a deep breath, trying to keep the mood light. "Well, it happens sometimes," he said with a small chuckle, "especially when waking up to someone touching." Her hands froze again, and she finally glanced up, but only for a second. Her silver eyes darted away, her cheeks turning that faint pinkish glow again. "I apologize if I caused discomfort," she said, voice lower than before. "No," Alex replied quickly. "You didn't." He looked at her closely. "It's just, you seemed really surprised." She hesitated, then said, "My species does not respond the same. We do not have external reactions tied to emotion or contact." Alex nodded slowly. "So you're saying you don't get these kinds of problems?" She blinked slowly, confused. "No, we do not. Our bodies remain still, unless we choose otherwise." Alex couldn't help but raise an eyebrow. "That sounds like a peaceful life," he joked. Liari didn't laugh, but a small smile touched her lips for the first time. Suddenly, she looked at her tablet and typed something. "I must finish this report," she said softly. Alex noticed her hands trembling slightly. "You're not just writing medical stuff, are you?" he asked with a grin. She flinched, then whispered, "Personal notes are permitted for emotional regulation." Before Alex could say more, another nurse entered the room, a different species, shorter, with pale green skin and wide amber eyes. She gave Alex a curious glance, then turned to Liari and spoke in a different language. Liari replied quickly, almost too quickly, as if trying to end the conversation fast. The other nurse smirked, then left. Alex caught the last part, something like, he noticed. Liari let out a breath and looked down again. Clearly flustered, Alex leaned forward just a little. "You?" "No," he said. "I'm not judging you." She finally met his eyes just for a heartbeat. "I do not know what I am feeling," she admitted. "It is strange to feel heat near someone, and stranger still to want to be close again." Those words hit Alex like a gentle shock. He didn't know what to say. No one had ever said something like that to him, not even a human, and definitely not a glowing-skinned alien nurse from another world. "Well," he said quietly, "if it helps, I don't mind having you close." She looked away again, hiding her expression behind her tablet. But he noticed her hands slow as she typed, not with fear, but thoughtfulness. That evening, after the room lights dimmed and Alex pretended to sleep, he felt a quiet presence near him. A chair moved softly beside the bed. The scent of her skin, a mix of clean air and soft electric ozone, reached him again. She didn't speak, she just sat there, watching him breathe. Her silver eyes flickered faintly in the dark, and for the first time, she allowed herself to look at him without turning away. The next day, the medical room felt warmer, or maybe it was just Alex's body finally recovering. He stretched his arms and legs, no longer tied down. Feeling slightly stronger than before, he had just finished a bland nutrient pack when the door opened again. It was her Liari, carrying a folded blanket and something that looked like tea in a steaming silver bowl. She didn't speak at first, just set the bowl on the side table and adjusted the settings on his bed. But Alex noticed the difference. Today, she didn't rush, didn't avoid eye contact. Her silver eyes lingered on him, just a little longer than usual. "I thought you might be cold," she said softly, placing the blanket over his legs. "Thanks," he said, watching her. "You didn't have to." Liari stood there quietly, like she was thinking deeply about something. Her hands clutched her scanner tightly, knuckles pale blue from pressure. Then, without warning, she turned toward him and asked, "Do all humans react to warmth the same way you do?" Alex blinked. Surprised, I guess, he said slowly. "Depends on what kind of warmth you mean." She sat down in the corner chair, something she had never done before. She didn't look like a nurse now, she looked curious, almost like a student. "I mean, when someone touches you," she explained. "When someone is close, your body heats up, your heart beats faster." Alex nodded. "Yeah, that happens when we like someone," he replied, "or feel something strong." Liari's voice grew quieter. "But why would the body react without permission?" That question made Alex pause. He realized just how different her species was, so in control of their biology. No surprises, no accidental signals. "Our bodies just do that," he said with a light shrug. "We don't always get to choose when or why," he chuckled. "Sometimes it happens at the worst time." Honestly, Liari tilted her head, studying him. "Then, how do you know when a feeling is true?" she asked. Alex thought for a second. "You feel it in your chest," he said, tapping his heart. "Not just the body." She was quiet for a long moment, then asked something that made Alex freeze. "If I touched you, on purpose, would you react again?" Alex nearly choked on his tea, coughing as his cheeks turned red. What? He stammered. Liari blinked, still serious. "For research," she said. "To understand this human response." Alex raised his hand, still trying to recover. Well, I mean, it's not that simple," he stuttered. "It's not a switch you flip, it's emotional too." Liari didn't look embarrassed this time. She looked fascinated, like she had discovered a new planet. "What if I caused that emotional response?" she asked. That shut Alex up completely. His heartbeat suddenly matched the monitors beeping beside him. Was this still about science? Or was she really wondering how he felt? "You're asking some heavy questions," he said, smiling nervously. Liari looked down, her long fingers brushing her knees. "My mentor says we should not ask things that confuse us," she whispered. "But I cannot help it." She stood up slowly and walked over to his bed. The air felt tense, almost vibrating between them. She reached out, gently touching his wrist. Her fingers were cold, but the warmth that passed through Alex's body was instant. He looked up at her, unsure if he should speak. But she did. "First, I do not understand what this means," she whispered. "But when I scanned your body yesterday and saw your response, I felt my heart stutter." She pressed her fingers gently to her own chest. "That has never happened before." Alex swallowed hard. "You felt something," he said, quietly. She nodded, eyes wide. "Maybe," she replied, "or maybe you infected me with your heat." Alex couldn't help but laugh. "Sorry," he said with a grin, "but if it's an infection, I'm not sure there's a cure." Liari smiled faintly for the first time. Her hand still rested on his wrist. "Not moving away, it feels good," she said. "I'm scared of it, but I want to feel it again." The moment was soft, strange, and powerful. Two beings from completely different worlds, sharing one very human thing. A heartbeat. A connection, an unthinkable question, asked not from duty, but from desire, just. Then, the lights in the room dimmed slightly as the medical system shifted to night mode. Liari slowly pulled her hand back. "I must go," she said gently. Alex nodded. Still stunned, as she turned toward the door, she paused. "I will return." "Tomorrow," she said, her voice lower. "Not as your nurse, but as something else." Liari stood in the hallway outside the recovery bay. Her hands still trembling from what she had done, she touched him, not to scan, not to treat, but to feel, and worse, she liked it. That warmth, that spark, it was nothing. Like what her instructors warned about, it wasn't infection, it wasn't error, it was curiosity. But deeper, something she didn't have a word for. Back in her private quarters, she opened her medical log. She was supposed to report vital signs, recovery rates, and physical scans. Instead, she typed a private entry, shielded from her supervisors. Subject: human, Alex. Reaction to proximity: increased heartbeat, elevated heat, non-threatening. She paused, then added, reaction to touch, mutual. That one word sat on the screen longer than the rest. She stared at it, unsure if she should delete it or admit it. In the end, she locked the file with a personal code. Some truths weren't ready to be shared with anyone, not even her own kind. The next day, Liari walked into the recovery bay like nothing had changed. But everything had. Alex was sitting upright, eating something from a gray tray with a look of deep suspicion. "It tastes like metal and socks," he muttered when he saw her. She blinked, confused. "Socks?" Alex grinned. "Don't worry, it's a human thing." She didn't respond, but her eyes flickered with amusement. Today, she stood closer to him, even when she didn't need to. Her scans were done quickly, but she lingered, checking the same spot twice. "You don't need to keep scanning," Alex teased gently. "I feel better," Liari tilted her head. "But I need to make sure you remain better," she said softly. There was a long silence, filled only by the faint hum of the room. Then she asked another strange question. "Do you like when I touch you?" Alex nearly dropped his spoon. Well, he rubbed the back of his neck. "Yeah, kinda hard not to." Her cheeks flushed violet again, a reaction that seemed more frequent lately. "I thought your kind would find it odd," she said. "We're not used to physical affection." Alex leaned back on the bed, arms folded. "Well, you're doing fine for someone who isn't used to it." Liari looked at him for a long time, then stepped closer. Her fingers hovered near his arm, but she didn't touch. "Not yet. Does your body always respond to emotion like that?" she asked. Alex shrugged. "Sometimes," he said, "but not just to anyone. You've got to feel something real." Liari lowered her hand, confused but fascinated. She wanted to ask what real felt like, but she already knew because she was feeling it, and she didn't know what to do with it. That night, back in the staff lounge, whispers began. Two nurses watched her closely, speaking softly in their language. They'd seen her spend extra time in Bay 14. They'd seen how her fingers lingered, how she smiled without realizing. Later, her supervisor pulled her aside, a tall female of the same race, stern and unblinking. "You've been reassigned," she said. Liari froze. "Why?" "There are rumors," her superior said quietly. "Rumors that you are becoming attached to a patient." Liari's heart dropped. She wanted to deny it, but the heat in her chest said otherwise. "I am only observing," she said quickly. The superior leaned closer. "Your eyes betray you," she whispered. "Curiosity is one thing, emotional entanglement is forbidden." Those words hit her like cold wind, but she couldn't forget Alex's warmth, or how her own heart had started beating faster near him. She walked back to her quarters in silence. She opened her journal again. "Today they warned me," she typed. "But how do I ignore what I feel?" The next day, she was not allowed to visit Bay 14. Another nurse was assigned to monitor Alex. Liari watched through the observation glass from a hidden corner. She saw Alex smile at the new nurse. Politely but without interest, she felt something she had never felt before: jealousy. That night, she stood outside the bay's door, debating with herself. If she walked in, she could be removed from the crew, banned from medical service. But if she didn't, she'd lose something she didn't fully understand. Her hand hovered over the access panel. Then she whispered to herself, "This is not about biology anymore." And she stepped inside. Alex turned, surprised but happy. "You weren't supposed to come back," he said. Liari walked up to him, closer than ever before. "I couldn't stay away," she said quietly. He reached out and touched her hand. She didn't pull back. Their fingers stayed there, tangled in silence, two beings, bound not by duty or rules, but by forbidden curiosity that no law could erase. Liari knew she had crossed a line. The moment she re-entered Alex's room without clearance, she broke more than one regulation. She broke her own training, her species code, and maybe even her future. But in that moment, none of it mattered. Because when she looked into Alex's eyes, her heart did something strange. It raced not from fear, but from wanting. Alex scooted over on the bed, making space for her on the edge. "You look like you just broke every rule in your book," he said with a grin. "I did," she replied softly, sitting beside him. "But I do not regret it." She sat quietly, letting the silence speak for her. Her eyes wandered to his hand resting beside her own. She didn't touch it, not yet, but her fingers twitched, aching to feel that warmth again. "I've been thinking," Alex said suddenly. "About us." Liari turned her head slightly. "Us?" She echoed. Alex nodded. "You and me, whatever this is." She looked down, her voice barely a whisper. "There is no name for it in my culture, but it feels like something." Alex said, "Something important," before she could answer. The door slid open. Liari jumped up as the head medic, Dr. Reschel, stormed in. He was not smiling. Behind him stood two security officers, silent and stone-faced. "Liari," the doctor said coldly, "you were removed from this unit. You are in direct violation of protocol." Alex tried to sit up fully, groaning with pain. "Hey, she's not hurting anyone," he said quickly. Reschel ignored him. Eyes locked on Liari. "You are relieved of duty, effective immediately." Liari's breath caught in her throat. "I was only trying to—" "You were not authorized to feel," Reschel snapped. "This is a medical station, not a romantic experiment." The words stung like acid. Alex stood, wobbling slightly as he placed himself between them. "If you punish her for caring," he said, "then your rules are broken." One of the security officers stepped forward, but Liari raised her hand. "Stopping them. I will go," she said, voice steady. "I will not resist." Alex looked at her in shock. "No," he said. "You don't have to." She gave him a sad smile. "I do," she whispered. "To protect you." They escorted her out. Leaving Alex behind, he slammed his fist against the bed rail, anger boiling inside him. This wasn't just about her. This was about how cold their system was. How love, care, or even curiosity was treated like infection. Hours passed, but he couldn't sleep. He paced the room, ignoring his pain. He needed to find her, to tell her what he hadn't had the courage to say yet. The next morning, he sneaked out of the med bay using a distraction caused by a fire alarm glitch. He limped through the corridors, past the quiet labs and sealed biochambers. He finally found her in a small isolated room, no lights, no equipment, just her, sitting on the floor, staring at nothing. "Liari," he breathed, and she looked up. Tears glistened at the corners of her eyes, rare and almost sacred for her kind. I thought they sent you off-world, she said. Surprised, I didn't let them, he replied. He sat beside her. Ignoring the dull ache in his ribs, he took her hand, gently, and she didn't pull away. My people say emotion is weakness, she whispered. That letting yourself feel is dangerous. Alex held her hand tighter. Well, your people never met someone like you, he said. Strong enough to feel and still face the world. Liari leaned her head against his shoulder. This will not end well, she murmured. Alex nodded. Maybe not, he said. But we get to choose what kind of ending it will be. Later that evening, the station director called for an emergency review. Liari was summoned, this time with Alex. At her side, together. They stood in front of a panel of senior officers and doctors. The director looked at them both with an unreadable expression. You, she said, pointing to Liari, broke multiple codes, and you, pointing at Alex, are encouraging this behavior. Alex took a step forward, his voice calm but firm. I didn't ask for this, he said. But I'm not running from it. She saved me, not just my body, but my heart. And I won't let her be punished for that. The director leaned back, tapping her claws on the table. Perhaps this is a new situation, she admitted. One that doesn't fit our rules. She looked at Liari. Until further notice, you are suspended from medical duty, but not exiled. Then to Alex, you are to be transferred to a neutral planet. Once recovered, they both bowed their heads, but inside they were relieved. It wasn't freedom, but it wasn't the end either. It was a path, a beginning carved through rules, by heartbeat alone. Alex stood near the window of his temporary quarters, watching the stars drift across the deep black sky. Outside, the alien station moved in silence, floating like a ghost among the stars. Inside his chest, though, his heart beat like war drums. He had just a few days before transfer to a neutral planet, and Liari. She was banned from duty, shattered by suspicion, silenced by shame. Every time he looked at the walls of his room, they felt more like a prison than a medical bay, and worse. The thought of leaving her behind twisted his stomach. They had given him freedom, but only if he abandoned her, and that wasn't freedom at all. That night, she came quietly through a side hallway, hood over her head. She wore no uniform, only civilian robes, pale and soft. Her eyes were tired but alive. I'm not supposed to be here, she whispered, but I had to see you. Alex stepped forward and wrapped his arms around her before she could say anything else. She let herself melt into him, breathing slowly. I don't want to go, he whispered into her hair. Then don't, she said softly, her voice trembling. They stood like that for a long time, not speaking. Then she pulled back and held up a glowing tablet. I have something, she said, but it's dangerous. She tapped the screen, and a small hologram opened, showing the maintenance shuttle bay. One of the old escape pods still works, she explained. No weapons, no trackers. It's used for moving scrap. No one guards it. Alex stared at the image, then at her. You want to run, he said, half in disbelief. I want to live, she replied. With you. His heart raced again. It wasn't a planet. Was a leap into darkness, but somehow, the idea of escaping with her felt safer than staying here without her. When? He asked. Tonight, she answered. Before your transfer is activated. They'll scan every transport route in the morning. Alex nodded slowly. No weapons, no navigation. He repeated. Liari smiled faintly. But freedom. They made their way through the quiet back halls, avoiding cameras and patrols. Liari moved like a ghost. Guiding him with subtle gestures, he followed without question. All the pain in his body felt distant now, because his heart was leading, not his wounds. At one point, they hid behind a row of storage crates as two guards passed by. Alex could hear their voices. They say the human and the nurse had something emotional, ridiculous, the other one scoffed. Emotion is not a survival trait. Alex bit his tongue. He wanted to yell, tell them how wrong they were. But Liari placed her hand gently on his chest, calming him. That small touch said everything. You don't need to fight them. Just stay with me. They reached the pod bay at last. A cold, dim space filled with dust and forgotten tech. The escape pod was small, barely enough room for 2 people. Alex climbed in first, pulling Liari in beside him. It was tight. Their knees touched. Their breaths shared the same tiny air. Liari activated the controls, fingers flying across the interface. Engaging silent launch, she whispered. A low hum started to vibrate under them. Alex looked at her, brushing hair from her cheek. Are you ready to leave everything? She looked at him with eyes that no longer feared the unknown. I'm not leaving everything, she said. I'm choosing something better. The pod doors closed, and the world outside vanished. A burst of energy pushed them forward out into the black sea of stars. There were no alarms, no explosions. Just the quiet hum of freedom. Inside the pod, they sat side by side, staring out at endless space. Where do we go? Alex asked. Liari leaned her head against his shoulder. There's a moon not far, uninhabited. Peaceful, she said. Enough to start something new. He nodded slowly. We'll figure it out, he said, and for the first time in days, they both smiled, not as fugitives, but as partners, in escape, in risk, and in something dangerously close to love. The pod touched down softly on the quiet moon. Its surface was pale and smooth, like frozen glass under starlight. No cities, no satellites, no scanners, just stillness. And for the first time in weeks, Liari and Alex could breathe without fear. They stepped outside together, wrapped in cloaks and silence. Alex looked up at the endless stars above them, blinking against the glow. He reached down and took Liari's hand. It felt natural now, like his hand was made for hers. This place is beautiful, Alex whispered. Liari nodded, her silver eyes reflecting the sky. Nothing here is watching us, she said softly. Nothing telling us what we are allowed to feel. They found shelter in an old research outpost, a forgotten dome left by explorers long ago. Dust covered everything, but it still worked. Inside was warmth, light, and space enough for 2. Enough to rest, to begin, over the next few days. They made a routine. Alex repaired the damaged solar units while Liari reprogrammed the food synthesizers. They built a new world, not from metal or power, but from quiet understanding. Every glance, every word they shared now had meaning. Not forced, not forbidden, just theirs. One morning, Alex woke to the soft sound of humming. Liari was standing near the window, her white hair glowing in the morning light. She wore one of his old shirts, oversized and warm. She turned and smiled gently. You're humming, he said, rubbing his eyes. She nodded shyly. Your music is catching. Alex sat up slowly, watching her with wonder. He had never imagined a life like this, alone on a moon, with an alien nurse who once panicked over human biology. Now she hummed Earth songs and laughed at his bad jokes. Now she looked at him not with curiosity, but with something deeper. That evening, they sat on a rocky ledge just outside the dome, wrapped in one blanket. The cold wind blew, but neither of them moved. The stars stretched endlessly across the sky. Alex pointed upward. Somewhere out there, Earth is spinning, he said. And your people are still pretending they don't feel. Liari rested her head on his shoulder. I don't belong with them anymore, she whispered. Alex turned to her, brushing his fingers gently along her jawline. You belong with me, he said simply. Her eyes shimmered with something soft and unspoken. In the following weeks, they wrote messages, letters never sent, to no one and everyone. Liari recorded a personal log entry, her voice calm and clear. Medical log, final note, she said. Subject human Alex has demonstrated emotional response not as weakness, but as strength. He healed not only my patient's body, but the part of me I didn't know was broken. Alex wrote in his journal too. Met an alien nurse. He scribbled with a smile. She thought I was sick, but it was just a heartbeat. And it found hers. One day, a small ship flew over the moon, scanning for activity. They stayed hidden until it passed, breathing together in perfect stillness. After it was gone, Liari turned to him and asked the question she had once feared. Would you stay here forever? If it meant we could stay together? Alex didn't need time to think. Yes, he said. Forever sounds just right. And so they stayed on a forgotten moon in the corner of a galaxy that didn't understand them, where rules and ranks couldn't reach them, where they could just be nurse and patient, alien and human. Two souls who found each other by accident and chose to never let go. In the end, it didn't matter that she was different, that her world banned emotion while his ran on it, because out there beyond the stars and silence, the only thing that mattered was the warmth between two hands, and the quiet promise in two hearts beating in sync.